This afternoon, I broke one of my kind of core rules that I talked about very early on at the start of this vlog. What happened was I ended up getting nothing out of my morning session, and so what you're seeing here is actually the evening section that where I finally got something on the page. This morning, just nothing was coming to me, and then I was determined to actually get something down, to finally sort of, break through this little part here. So I stuck around for a second session after work tonight, hammered it out, and finally got something down. And so what you're seeing on the screen here is me finally putting some words down on the page. But at the very end of it, I broke my rule. And so one of my rules that I've talked about before is not stopping or ending a section of writing when you're about to get to the really juicy part, when you're about to start diving into the real meat, the real seriousness, where the real drama is, to not stop. I've talked before about how kind of the amateur writer will often skip over that part. They will either end their chapter abruptly right when like the fallout of some news comes, and they'll start a new chapter and they'll jump ahead till after the big moment of the big reveal. Or what they'll do is they'll try and write out that section, but right before they start to write it out, they stop for that day. They stop that day. They take a break. They leave the keyboard. And so I've mentioned before that the heavy emotional moments of a story need to not be done separately. You need to write those out right after the setup comes. So I've given the example before of, like, if you're writing a scene where an individual, like we'll say a husband is going to confess to an affair to his wife. Some people, what they'll do is they'll do the first thing I mentioned, where they'll just cut it off. So the guy, they'll end the chapter right there where the guy announces the affair, and then the next chapter picks up like a few minutes afterwards, and the wife's yelling and all this stuff. That right there is a cop-out. You've avoided the meat, that very next moment, the initial reactions, the initial emotions, what the guy is thinking right as he tells it, what the woman's experiencing right as she hears it the first time. You're sort of depriving the audience of this. So you don't, I tell them, you don't want to jump across those parts. You don't want to cut those parts out. You don't want to jump ahead. You want to stay in those moments and drag those heavy emotional moments out. That's the first part. The second part is, when it comes time to write those moments, you write that at the same time that you write the setup. So right as the gentleman, is about to confess to the affair, you don't stop right there, go take a break, go to the bathroom, pause, go get, a sip of water, go eat a meal, go for a walk, and then come back. You stay there at the keyboard and you write out that scene right where you are. The reason why is that it's a weird phenomenon, but the human body, the human mind, for some reason, it loves to leave the keyboard right when those big emotional moments come, and you need to stay in the moment with the characters as they experience it. I'm a big believer that you need to stay at the page with the characters right as they experience these moments, and you need to write out exactly what comes to you right there. That is where the true emotion, that's where the true kind of feeling comes in. If you take a break, if you leave the keyboard, if you come back after a break, you lose it. You lose the momentum you had going in, and it feels different. It does not feel the same thing. What you write out doesn't feel as strong as what you would have had if you actually wrote it out right after it. So not taking that break. And so what I did tonight was I broke that rule. I was building up to this moment and I stopped. Reason why is I just happened to be very tired, and basically I was like, okay, I'm gonna ruin this section if I write right now. I'm not going to be as kind of open-minded. I'm not open-minded, but I'm not going to be as clear-headed going into this part. I don't want to mess it up. That is a lie that your mind is telling you. That thing right there is basically a lie that you're telling yourself. You should stay there and you should try and fight through it. I did not. And so obviously, yeah. I mean, yep, hypocritical. A bit of a hypocritical moment for me. Certainly, I am merely human. But yeah, I stopped. So I'm gonna go back tomorrow, and I'm hoping I can keep the energy and momentum I was feeling leading up to that moment. I'm hoping I can recapture that tomorrow. I'm hoping this whole clear-headed thing will work based on experience and based on kind of everything that's happened before. It's not going to happen. It's going to feel less. It's going to feel distant, and that's going to be kind of a heavy penalty. That was my thing tonight. That was my thing. It was not staying with the moment. It was stopping. It was tapping out early. And so we'll see. We'll see what I can pull off. I'm sure it won't be terrible by any means what happens next, but will it have maybe that 5-10% of the additional emotion, whatever I write, will it be that 5-10%, better than if I stayed in that moment? It won't, probably not. It'll probably lack that 5-10% extra punch that if I stayed in that moment and wrote right there. Yeah, it probably won't, but I think it'll still be good. And again, I'm only human. As in this, I hope this sort of kind of reiterates the fact that, yeah, I have these sort of rules and I have these sort of advice I give people as far as the writing goes. But look, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail at certain points, and yeah, you're not always going to be able to follow your own advice. Just kind of a fact of life. So with that, I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully I'll be able to capture that momentum, capture that scene again. Hopefully. And we'll kind of see how that turns out.